Hi, Promised Land parents. I'm so glad that you're joining us today for Real Talk for Right Now. Today, our guest is Eric Connor. Eric is a therapist in our community. He works out of Palatine, and he works with a range of individual, marriage, and family issues. But more important than that, he is also a Promised Land parent. So, Eric, why don't you tell us a little bit about your family?
Hey, Jennifer, it's great to be here and so excited to be talking to fellow parents because I'm one too. And I have, my wife's name is Rachel. We have two boys, Colin and Chase, and they are 9 and Chase's is now 6. But they're really steeped in Promised Land and love it. My wife, Rachel, actually helps volunteer for Promised Land. And yeah, it's wonderful. But we are also, like everyone else, sheltering in place. And so we're also at home. I'm actually in my office right now. I have the luxury to come here to do kind of telehealth video sessions. So I'm not quite as exposed to it, but we're all spending a lot of time at home, and we're, yeah, just all getting used to this new normal and the range of feelings that it's bringing up, both positive and
Yes.
negative, and just a lot of surprises there, at least for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one reason I'm so grateful to have you today, because you're going to speak not only from the therapist's point of view, but also from the parent's point of view and
Mm-hmm.
that shared experience that we all have. So today we are going to talk about what are the best ways we can stay in an affirming place while sheltering in place. And I know for myself, I'm often aware that my thoughts, my inner thoughts, sometimes I call them the voices in my head, are negative. I'm quick to put myself down and to criticize myself. And in this time period of the virus, I'm doing it even more. And I don't want to keep telling myself, oh, you're such a bad parent. Oh, you didn't do that right. You never do anything right. Things like that. So I know you're here to help us to stop those critical thoughts and turn them around a little bit. How would you, first of all, start us off?
Yeah. So, and thanks. Yeah. Thanks so much for kind of being honest about that. Cause I have those too. And I think a lot of us do. The, we call that the inner critic. And it's that voice that literally like speaks worse to us than we would like speak to anyone else. Like we wouldn't let others talk to us the way our inner critic talks to us sometimes, which is always an interesting phenomenon. And there's a lot of psychological research around what is that voice about, and there's a lot of reasons why it's there, and sometimes that's the voice of someone else that started it, and we could talk for a long time about that. But when we are in isolation of sorts and we're out of our normal routine, and we don't have the same types of social structures, that inner critic voice can really feel louder, and we have less tools about what to do with it. So I really, for this recording, we're going to talk about a few points here, but the general theme is I really want everyone to feel a lot of grace and compassion. I mean, Jennifer, I don't know what you're doing with your kids, but I can almost guarantee you're probably doing a fantastic job, no matter what the voice says. So we really want this to be an encouraging few minutes here where people feel good about what they're trying to do. And but to talk really honestly about some things that I am trying to use with myself and my family, but also really what I'm telling clients as well. These are just a few steps to start to think about that hopefully can just kind of take the backpack of rocks off our back, and just to kind of let things be a little bit lighter for us. So
Yeah, I love the two words you used, grace and compassion, and I am so ready to hear more about it.
Yeah. So all right. So let's just think about it. I want to talk about 3 points today. And some of them maybe do, some of them maybe people have heard before, but that the first point is that, and I'm speaking to the parents now, your self-care, meaning what you need to do to take care of yourself, it really has to be a priority. And the example that we always use for this, and it bears repeating, is that when you're on a plane and they talk about the oxygen masks, it's so easy, they tell you have to put yours on first. And they have to emphasize that because you wouldn't instinctively think that way. You'd be like, well, of course, do my kids first, then me. But the goal here is that everyone in the family system is helped the most. And for that to happen as our parent, we really do have to take care of ourselves in a prioritized kind of way. So let's say that you need some time in the morning to meditate, pray, read a book, to journal, whatever, to exercise in the house, whatever you need. And there's examples where maybe you wake up early, but then the kids wake up. It'd be so easy to just discount what you think you need to do for yourself and immediately start to kind of be with the kids. And I kind of want to, in a healthy way, lean back against that. Is there something that they could do for 45 minutes? You do get that time to take care of yourself, because if you can find ways to keep yourself in a good place, you're going to be better for the whole family, and you're going to be better throughout the day. And our body really does need rest, and even emotionally, we need these things. I know we can feel guilty because, well, I should right away get into the e-learning course, and how do we prep, and what's the best practice? I just want to encourage that. Part of what maturity is for us as adults, that a lot of us didn't really learn in childhood, to be honest, is that we do have limits. And none of us are supermen or superwomen, and yet we can act like we have total unreserves of just to give. And there is a limit to that. And that's kind of why we're seeing a lot of, it's the statistics show there's a lot more kind of domestic arguments and things like that, because we are running low. So the very first thing is that your self-care kind of needs to be prioritized. Did I explain that okay? All right.
Absolutely. I hear you giving us permission and allowing us ourselves permission to maybe put the kids in front of a show, or encourage them to do something on their own for a little while, if possible, so that we can actually put our own oxygen masks on. And I think, I can only speak for moms right now. I think when some of us think of self-care, we think about, I'm going to go get a pedicure, or I'm going to dinner with my friends. And I think self-care is even broader than things like that. Can you give us just a couple of ideas of what self-care could look like in this time?
Yeah, and I think sometimes self-care has kind of been like therapeuticized, if that's a word, but I just mean just what keeps you feeling okay. And so there's obviously, we can think about the obvious things. Well, I want to go get a massage or do things like that, which we can't do now. But that may be like, I just need to have quiet for like a half hour, or I want to read my favorite book, or there's a show that I love to watch at night, or I need to go for a walk, and I need to, I don't know, it could be all kinds of things. But what do you need that makes it feel like I'm not running totally low emotionally, spiritually, or physically? And then just do that. And I think a lot of us probably know what that is, but I think the struggle is that we, like you said so well, we don't give ourselves permission, because we let the guilt kind of outweigh maybe what we want to do. And kind of a phrase I use in a lot of varieties is choose guilt over resentment. So better to take care of yourself and choose and have some guilt than to not do that. And by the end of the day, you're so resenting the shelter. You're so resenting even your kids sometimes, because they just are kids and normally have unending needs. Does that make sense? So
Yes.
So
I've never heard that phrase before. Choose guilt over resentment.
Yeah, I mean, it's not black and white, but in a lot of cases, if you have to choose between some guilt right now versus a resentment later, it's almost always better to have the guilt in the moment.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing. It's just that's take care of yourself. Don't feel guilty. Don't think that everyone else is doing these heroic acts. We all have to take care of ourselves first, because that benefits everyone the most. Yeah. The second thing is it's a little bit of a mantra that I use with a lot of clients. It's really used a lot in 12-step groups, but I think everyone could benefit. And it's this mantra of just one day at a time. And so I encourage parents to think about, when stuff comes up, is this today's problem or is this tomorrow's problem? And if it's tomorrow's problem, let it go for now. So much of the struggle is because one thing is happening today, and then we are projecting out that this is the way it's going to be for the next 4 weeks. And it really may not be. So maybe today, my kids, they're doing too much screen time. Okay, that's just today. And tomorrow we'll try to do better, as opposed to just kind of projecting out. Or we might try to be thinking about what's 4 days away and all that. And there's real biblical truths in this. And I think Jesus is always encouraging us to try to stay mindful and in the moment, but just trust that you'll be given what you need day by day to get through this and to do e-learning and to learn Seesaw or whatever the tech things are that we're all having to learn now. So it's just this one day at a time. And we really have to treat this shelter in 24-hour chunks. So let's get through today, and then we end this 24-hour period, and then we'll start a new one tomorrow. So one day at a time, and that's a huge thing because, as you know, for people that have gotten, you know, more significant addictive behaviors or things like that, it's the projecting out in the future and all the worry and fears and all that can feel overwhelming in just the present moment, and then we need to find some escape.
That I can identify with that statement, because when we first heard on the news that the date was April 30th, a physical reaction where I felt like my breathing changed and I was overwhelmed. And what I told myself in that moment, maybe in that moment or maybe a few moments later, was if I think April 30th, I don't think I'll ever make it. That's not going to be a healthy way to look at it. I'm going to think today.
Exactly.
Sometimes I have to think the next hour. And I just, it's going to come in the mail today, I hope. I just ordered a personalized bracelet where you can get a leather bracelet and you can put any phrase on it. And the phrase I put on it was, just this breath, to remind me that what matters right now is just the next breath, taking things in smaller chunks. So I appreciate you again giving us permission to take care of ourselves, but now also to let things go.
Yes. And that's a perfect example. I mean, if we think about April 30th or May 15th, or God help us, you know, May 30th, that feels overwhelming. It really does. But if you can just think about just today, then that makes it far more manageable. So, and that bracelet's fantastic. Breathing is great. I've been looking at certain things from the Psalms, or just like, you know, maybe like one verse, and it's like I'm repeated to myself, you know, and just these ways of really what we call mindfulness. Just stay present, keep your mind in this moment, and instead of away in the past or in the future, just in this moment. And then sometimes life is 1 hour at a time, not even one day, just 1 hour at a time. But we'll get through it if we adopt that mentality.
And if I could add just one more thing, I want to make a point that we can't do this perfectly all the time. So for example, if I start looking at April 30th again, and I catch myself doing it and having the fear and the panic, I have a choice. I can say to myself, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're doing it again, looking too far in the future. Or I can give myself grace and compassion, the two words you mentioned earlier, and I can just shift myself back to in the moment or in the day. So I want the parents listening to make sure that you know it's going to happen. Even if you tell yourself to focus on the today, it'll still happen, and that's okay. Expect it, and then just bring yourself back to today.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Great point.
How about your third point?
Yeah, so the third point, this one's really important to me generally too, is I say, so please be careful with comparison. Psychologically, as human beings, we do compare ourselves to others. It's oftentimes how we assess aspects of our life. It's almost a biological thing inside of us. So it can be extremely triggering to have a tough morning and then to go online and then see a parent who's posting something that feels like they're doing it perfectly. That comparison can very quickly induce feelings of shame or less than. In addition, it could even tap into, you know, general shame messages or tough messages, beliefs that we've already had that we're working through, and they're just more heightened now because we're in isolation. So be very mindful of social media, mindful of these things. Try not to let yourself compare. And please remember too, that generally people are really just showing a curated version of themselves. I mean, I try to tell everyone I meet, because I talk to a lot of people, I really haven't talked to anyone yet that just feels like they're hitting the ball out of the park. I mean, everyone is really kind of uncertain and struggling with things. So you have total permission to shut down Facebook if it's not helpful, or to shut down things like that, and to just try to remember that you're going to see it, and then it's going to feel like I'm not doing it. And just in that moment, just kind of know it's probably not the truth. And be careful of that, because we could somehow just be, surfing stuff and seeing things. Next thing you know, we'll feel it in our body. It's just a sense of like,
Mm.
I'm not measuring up. I'm not doing what everyone else is doing. But that really is probably false. So it's something that's just a practical tool, and that involves boundaries, because we really don't want to be brought down by anything that really shouldn't be what does that. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And I like the way you said you tied in the feelings there. I think that's a great indicator for us as parents sometimes. If we
yeah,
are starting to get more negative on ourselves or be wishful about wanting something that we see online, paying
yeah.
attention to those feelings and letting that be what reminds us, okay, this might not be the healthiest place for me to be right now. And again, you gave us permission to shut it off.
Yes, that's the whole thing. You can shut that off. And the other thing too that's important about that is a lot of times when we feel that, then we can get anxious, and now we want to kind of
Mm.
overcorrect. And the big thing with that, and we'll maybe talk about this in a future video, our kids feel that anxiety. So
Mm.
because of the reaction we might be having internally, that kind of energy is going to get transmuted to the kids in the moment, and that's not best for them. We don't want them to have that experience
Yeah.
in this shelter. We want them to feel, we can talk more, but that's the other thing too. What we struggle with, our kids can feel, and we don't want them to have that kind of energy, because this isn't easy for them either.
Yeah. That's a great reminder as we close that if we are trying to follow your points about taking care of ourselves first, um, taking things one day at a time, and also watching the comparison game, it's not only benefiting us, it is benefiting our children. When we take care of ourselves as parents, we take care of our children in a much better way. So thank you so much. I know that we have a plan for you to come back and share a couple more things with us in a future episode, but I really want to thank you. And those who are listening, if you want to find Eric, I'll post where I post this video, I'll post the links to his website and email, but I'll say them as well. It's Eric, ERIC, at recover-restore.com. Eric at recover-restore.com. And that's also the website, www.recover-restore.com. Again, thanks, Eric. And to all the parents listening, I want to thank you again. I want to remind you that you are doing a great job. Hang in there. What I have to do sometimes for myself, I put my hand over my heart, and then I clutch my hand with my other hand. And I take a deep breath and I say to myself, I can do this. And I want to tell you the same thing. Parents, you can do this. You are doing this. Just keep at it. We're always here for you. Give me a call or an email anytime. Bye.